So, for years now, we've been asking questions. Let me show you this piece of history. This is just a regular bell, right? This actually sat at the front door of the White House in the 1800s, where any citizen could walk in at any time and say, "I demand to talk to the president." This is our house. The White House is the people's house. It's not the house of some king. So when we ask for answers, we should expect to get them. We should demand it. We've been asking for full and unredacted files in JFK's assassination since the assassination. And we got a little bit closer this week, thanks to the Trump administration. But even the JFK research nerds are admitting that so far we didn't get anything really, no smoking gun, if you will, in the latest release. If you're looking for who in this mystery, but we're not getting that. But if you're looking for what in this recent release, which we have been, what has been going down? What are they trying to protect? What is the source of most of this mess? I think it's the eyes and ears of the United States, the American intelligence community. And this new release has brought into light some extremely troubling activity from organizations like the CIA. And failing to release all of the information for so long has enabled them to run completely out of control for over half a century. If we had all of this released, everything that we know, it had been released back in the 60s, I want you to listen carefully because this is true. We may not have had 9/11. We may not have had Benghazi. We may not even had Epstein. But before we get into some of the stuff that was released, I want you to consider this. Every time a new president comes into this office, he promises disclosure. And every time he does that, the CIA runs in and stops it. Why? The last time that it was stopped, it was under Biden. And who ran into this office? The head of the CIA, William Burns. Now, this is the letter he wrote, okay? He begged Biden, please protect the CIA intelligence methods. Wait a minute, methods and procedures, we don't know those? Huh, they're the same as the 1960s? When you see what we found in these documents, that should disturb you. And I did mention William Burns earlier in the show, didn't I? Sounds familiar. Oh, yeah. He's the guy that met with Epstein, not once, but 3 times. That William Burns. Now we have him begging Biden not to release this latest trove of JFK files. I wonder why. Are CIA methods and procedures from the early 1960s so precious and groundbreaking and important? No. So what is it they're actually afraid of, really? I want to show you some of this stuff. My staff spent about a week just downloading all of the files from the recent document release. Then they went to work. They're so tired. Everybody on the staff is so tired. They compared the data, which is mostly old data, and compared it to all of the other official releases over the past few decades. Then we took something we wouldn't have been able to do a year ago, and we fed all of this into AI. And then we asked AI to compare and to speculate who the most likely person, group, people that were involved in the assassination of JFK. What's the most likely scenario? Well, it gave 6 possible scenarios. Number 3 through 6 were the Cuban government, the anti-Castro Cuban exiles, organized crime, and the Soviet Union. Now, all 4 of those received the likelihood of only low to moderate. So there's not much evidence that points to any of that. The number 1 was Lee Harvey Oswald, with a likelihood rating of high. Okay. Now here's where it really gets interesting. Number 2, right there with Oswald, is a category it identified as rogue CIA elements. It received a likelihood of moderate to high. In fact, its probability rating was just 20 percentage points off of Oswald. Now, if that's anywhere close to being the truth, and I'm a sleazy CIA director, I probably want to run into the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, please don't release any of those files. Please, here's a letter that shows you why you shouldn't release those files. But even if that's not true, there are documents that show the CIA has been acting that irresponsible to even give the appearance that the CIA is this dirty. I'd cover it up too, and we have those documents. So what was the CIA up to in the 1960s? Well, let me show you some of these documents. This new document release, taken with all of the other releases, paints an interesting picture, and I have it over here on the chalkboard. It is JFK's war with the CIA. I think we can safely say that Kennedy and the intelligence community were at war following the spring of 1961. That's 2 years before Kennedy was shot. You had, first of all, the Bay of Pigs fiasco. It set a dumpster fire in the CIA, and Kennedy was lighting that fire. Here's a memo that is dated just 2 months after the Bay of Pigs. It's very well known to the JFK assassin researchers, and it was re-released last week. It's from Kennedy's advisor, Arthur Schlesinger. This is really an important document. It's the lowlights of the CIA and how they were spreading chaos through the use of covert action and paramilitary warfare. The appearance is that Kennedy was gearing up for a major shakeup with the CIA. JFK jumped with 2 big counter moves against the CIA. He went against their leadership and the way they funded their operations throughout the world. So what did he do? He went and he fired Allen Dulles. Allen Dulles Airport, named after him in Washington, D.C., he's the head of the CIA. He's the guy who started it all. And then he moved on to how they financed their chaos. The publication Shield is interesting. The Shield was used by employees of the International Cooperation Administration. It's called the ISA. This was the financial arm that funded the foreign assistance and non-military security programs. It was established to spread U.S. interests throughout the world during the Cold War, and it was immediately accused of being nothing more than a CIA cutout. Wow. That sounds a little like USAID, doesn't it? This is why this matters. The mysterious forces that are trying to fight the Trump administration to leave USAID alone. Do you want to guess what organization was created to replace the ICA back in the 60s? Yep, USAID. You see, that's why these documents, even though they don't tell us who killed him, leads us to believe, yes, it was a lone wolf. It was Oswald. But what is much more important than who? Because some things never change unless you question relentlessly. That's why questioning history is so important. That's why I've said never, ever give up. Always ask questions. Question everything. So, what was the CIA really up to in the early 60s? Were they really out of control? Because that's what these new documents reveal, and they reveal a lot. This release document here shows a failed CIA mission in Havana, Cuba, where CIA operatives were caught by the Cubans and arrested. Did you ever hear about that? Here's another document. This document that was released talks about the CIA's infiltration of American journalists. Sound familiar? This is how they manipulated public opinion and gained access to the people through their sources that include the Attorney General Robert Kennedy. The CIA was all over U.S.-based operations here in the homeland. That is illegal. It was then, it is now. This all included the infiltration. Here's another document. The infiltration of American businesses like Pan Am, the global airlines. The CIA's wild overstep included secret wiretaps As this newly released document describes, this specific meeting was supposed to be attended by Attorney General Robert Kennedy. The CIA clearly had no boundaries, and that included the surveillance of a major presidential campaign. Nope, I'm not talking about modern history and Donald Trump when they wiretapped him, even though that's what's happening. We all know that this was just business as usual now. The CIA has always done this crap. Here is the latest document on wiretaps that was just released. Shows the CIA was surveilling presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. Did you ever hear about that? Is anybody even talking about that one today? No, because they're all looking for the who, not the what. All of this stuff has been hidden from us, and we stopped asking questions because they used a very effective couple of words to get people to shut up. Conspiracy theorist. I know, I've been labeled one for years. We'll be labeled it again tonight because, the Great Reset or the fact that the COVID vaccine was cooked up by a bunch of friends. They tried to do the very same thing to Trump over and over again that we saw in the 60s. So the CIA was completely out of control. JFK now at war with them. Here's another released document here. This document, previously known about, describes a claim by a CIA asset named Gary Underhill. He claimed that it was a small clique within the CIA that assassinated Kennedy. This document also reveals the place where Oswald bought the rifle that shot Kennedy. Let me show you this. The motive, Bay of Pigs. Kennedy fires the head of the CIA. The Schlesinger memo saying it's out of control. The capability, failed missions in Havana, infiltration of the U.S. media, infiltration of U.S. businesses, wiretaps on RFK and a presidential candidate. Those things were going to be exposed if Kennedy was going to reveal them, and he said he would. Then the clique of the CIA, a small little clique, almost like a deep state. Is any of this coming true now? The CIA clique, the rifle, guess where he bought the rifle? This is nuts. Nobody knows how he got the ammo that it was used in the assassination, but it turns out that the ammo originally requisitioned by the CIA, and the rifle where he bought it, the ammo in the gun store, both connected to the CIA. What a coincidence. Come on. The newly released documents show the CIA had eyes on Oswald from the moment he left the Soviet Union. They followed him in Helsinki. The documents show it. They had tabs on his pro-Castro group in New Orleans. These documents now show it. They took photos of him when he was at the Soviet embassy in Mexico City. The documents prove it. It looks an awful lot like the only time they didn't know where he was the day of the assassination. Weird, right? Another group that we've heard for a long time had ties, but we didn't know, was the ties to the assassination and the mob. There are documents that came out just last week. In fact, right here, we have the documents of the CIA and the mafia. Shows the CIA was using the mafia to explore other kinds of assassinations in places like Cuba. This would explain the CIA cliques connected to people like Jack Ruby in Dallas. These documents, some new, some old, show motive. They show a capability of an absolutely out-of-control CIA. It's showing the connections to people like the mob and Oswald, as well as the weapon and his ammunition. So, was the CIA involved? Were they responsible? Maybe even just a small offshoot of a deep state in the CIA? Well, artificial intelligence, and you can't believe everything artificial intelligence says, but it can process things faster than my team can, working 24 hours a day. They give this a moderate to high probability. And I think so too.